Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, June 20th, 2018 to order. Can we have a roll call, please? Mr.
Yes.
Alexandrovich.
Mrs. Witkowski.
Here.
Mr. Gamble.
Here.
Mr. Nielsen is excused. Mrs. Evans.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mrs. Larson.
Here.
And I am here.
Thank you. And the meeting has been properly posted. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Witkowski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gamble. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 is community comment. Is there any community comment this evening? Any community comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5. Would any board member like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Witkowski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lewis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 is school board announcements. Do we have any announcements tonight?
I do have foundation meeting tomorrow morning, so they're still humming along.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, thank you. Item 7 is school board calendar. We have a regular Board of Education meeting on Wednesday, July 11th, 2018, here at the Education and Community Center at 6 o'clock p.m., and a regular Board of Education meeting Wednesday, August 22nd, here at the ECC at 5:30 p.m., followed by the annual meeting of electors here on Wednesday, August 22nd, 2018, at 6 o'clock p.m. Item 8, reports and presentations and other school business. 8A, the Sabre Academy report. Mr. Cohen.
Good evening. I'm joined tonight by Franklin High School Associate Principals Jordan Hine and Anita Sundstrom and Sabre Academy instructor Lori Dykstra.
Hi, welcome.
The full report's available on board docs, but I did want to highlight just a few pieces of the report, and then the four of us would be happy to take any questions you might have. This update for the board is really a midpoint update for us. In the fall, we began a review of the high school systems of support for students who have encountered barriers to learning, and universally, what sorts of things might we be doing to better address some of those needs from a global perspective. And as we moved through that work, the level of intensity of the supports started to increase, eventually landing on our alternative program that we would classify as a fairly intensive support, Sabre Academy. And so a collaborative team made up of a variety of stakeholders came together as an extension of that work that we were doing around systems of support, and took the opportunity to engage in a full-scale review of our Sabre Academy program. As many of you know, Sabre Academy has been around since 2008 as our in-house alternative program for students who, for a variety of reasons, struggle in a larger, more traditional environment. Since 2014, that program has served over 200 students and has had a fairly consistent emphasis on credit recovery. Most of the students who engage in the Sabre Academy program at present are significantly behind in terms of credits and would not graduate on time if they didn't have the opportunity to engage in that alternative environment. At the same time, we do offer other alternative programs, all of them off-site, and one of them is fairly similar to Sabre Academy in its current state. That's the Connects Learning Center program in Cudahy. It's part of a multi-district consortium, and so that program admits students really from a variety of high schools in the area, South Milwaukee, Cudahy, Oak Creek, and Franklin, and that program is also very much focused on credit recovery and meeting a lot of the same needs of students. So when the team came together to review the current programming, we really turned our attention to where we wanted to be in the future in terms of Sabre Academy. And one of the key charges of the team was to look for ways to differentiate the program from Connect's Learning Center and from other alternative programs that we're a part of, because if there's too much overlap and similarity between those programs, we end up serving the same students. And there are students who potentially have other needs that are not being served well by those programs. And so we wanted to identify how we needed to evolve Sabre Academy into the future in order to meet the needs of learners that we're not currently addressing through those programs due to that similarity and just due to the focus and emphasis of those programs. The types of students that typically seek out or become a part of alternative programs are students who have significant skill gaps, usually multiple years of skill gap in a particular subject area. Students with mental health needs that aren't being addressed through the kind of larger, more traditional school environment. And students who have demonstrated that they're actively disengaged in school despite numerous interventions from our staff and from our administrative team. And so the alternative environment, again, allows us that opportunity to have smaller class size, more individualized attention, and just a completely different approach to how we're instructing, because we can utilize different strategies in that sort of environment to reach learners. And so through the review process, we took a look at what our ideal state is going to be into the future. We then looked at what our current state is in terms of, you know, what is the current kind of statistics of the program, who are we serving, how are we serving them. And then we talked about, as we were going to plan for that shift to that ideal state, what steps did we need to take to make that happen. And so how are we going to evolve the program to kind of reach that kind of new design in terms of where we wanted to be into the future. So this is really a midpoint check for us. We've done a lot of that work throughout the fall and spring and now into the summer. But you're going to notice as you look at the report, there's a lack of structural details in there, and that's very intentional. We don't post length of day or times the program's going to run. We don't post numbers of students or staff because we need to work through those details. Now that we have kind of the foundation of what we're going to build the program on as we evolve it, now the work of how do we do that is where we're going to kind of put our time into the summer and into the fall. And so as you look over the report, again, just a couple things worth highlighting. You know, really the shifts that were occurring were in the areas of emphasis and the level of intensity that we could provide around those areas of emphasis. And you're going to see three key areas. And I would point out that these aren't areas that are significantly different from the remainder of the high school or what we would hope for all students. But what is different, again, is that level of intensity and the types of strategies we're using with those students in that environment that may just not simply be feasible with a 1,500 student body. And so those three areas, the first one was related to academic achievement and core competencies. If you remember back to the 2 meetings ago when the board approved changes to the graduation policy, we altered some of the language around alternative programming and shifted away from credit recovery to the notion that students could earn their Franklin High School diploma through meeting the requirements of the program as long as the program was board approved. And so what we're going to be proposing is that we shift the focus of the program to a competency-based model rather than credit recovery. We believe in an assets-based model with students rather than a deficits-based model. When students come into the program and they're maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 credits behind, that is kind of a deflating feeling for students, and it becomes difficult for them to recover those credits at the pace we need them to graduate on time. A competency-based model, on the other hand, allows us to engage students in interdisciplinary projects that involve multiple disciplines and allow students to show their mastery of those broader competencies, all of which are derived from academic standards. So there's a clear connection between the academic standards and the competencies, and in the report I provided you just one example of what that might look like and the types of standards that are incorporated into that broader competency. As we start to move into the fall, this team will come back in November and we'll be seeking board approval for the changes to the program. And at that time, we'll get into some more detail about competencies and we'll show you some examples of the types of competencies we'll be adopting into the program to give the board a kind of better feel for what that is like. And we also will likely talk about some of the assessments we might be using to kind of demonstrate that. Again, to make that a little more tangible. But that's one of the bigger changes that we've considered for the program. The second is a more intentional emphasis on employability skills. Students who are in the Sabre Academy program now all engage in a career portfolio, and it's a fairly rigorous process that engages learners in interviews of business professionals, may involve job shadowing, involves a lot of reflection and journaling. But what we're talking about here is evolving that to providing opportunities for students to meet the requirements of the employability skills certificate through the Department of Public Instruction, and that requires a work-based placement in a certain amount of hours, and then students demonstrating competency in 11 different areas of that portfolio. And then if that's completed, students would earn that certificate through the Department of Public Instruction. So a little more intense and a little different than what we're doing now, and you're going to see there's a lot of flexibility tied to that. We listed out the types of experiences that would qualify. It could be that the student is currently employed, and we just are a little more intentional about their reflection related to that experience. It could be the student is engaging in a job shadow, could be a youth apprenticeship, could be an internship, or perhaps they're taking a class at the high school that is a simulation-based course, like an advanced autos course or an advanced constructions course, and that counts as their work-based experience, and we provide some opportunities for support, mentorship, and reflection. So again, I think making that a little more intentional and ramping up that intensity is a good shift for us in terms of working with students. The third area relates to social and emotional learning. At present, Sabre Academy collaborates with our student services team to address the mental health and social emotional needs of our learners, but this adds another level of intensity and intentionality to that. It builds in some routines. It's a much more structured approach to perhaps the school psychologist comes in every Wednesday and facilitates some work with the Sabre Academy students. Perhaps they're engaging with school counselors in some sort of restorative circle. Perhaps there are some routines built into the daily cycle of the program where students are engaging in social and emotional learning needs. The benefit of that for us is DPI just recently released a new set of social emotional learning competencies in K-12. They're very well defined. So between those and the employability skills that are also well defined, we have a nice base to work from, and we can incorporate some more intentional strategies to kind of build the capacity of learners through that process. So our next steps as a team, after kind of reviewing the research and going through that process of ideating an ideal state and talking about what our core pillars for the program we're going to be moving forward now, is to do the work of operationalizing that. So what does that look like? How are our instructors going to work together with our administrative team and our student services team to make these things come alive for kids? And as we continue to work throughout the summer and then into the fall around that, we'll be coming back to the board in November, seeking your approval for that change to the program. And then our goal right now is to relaunch that program in January, bringing in a new set of students who kind of fit under the new paradigm of the program. In the meantime, we do have current Sabre Academy students who are in the program and continuing in the program under the old paradigm. And so our Sabre Academy instructors will continue to work with them under the credit recovery model until the new program goes into place. So we're going to see them through to graduation, and then we'll be kind of shifting and transitioning over to that new paradigm and those new programs, provided the board supports and approves that level of change. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to my team to see if there's anything else they want to add about the process or anything that I missed. Okay, then we'll open it up to the board for questions.
Okay, my question, and I talked to you earlier, but, so as far as, measuring success of this, because we've had the program for 10 years, I think we had some success. I'm assuming these students that have been in the program in the past have all graduated. So how do we measure success now? I mean, are they still going to graduate? What's going to be different? Is success going to look differently for these students as a result of this?
Yeah. So I'll kind of give my quick response, and then I would welcome the team's response. I think for us, these students are still going to earn a Franklin High School diploma. They're still going to graduate. That's our first goal. But our broader goal is that goal of life, career, college readiness, right? And so we're hoping to measure success through these three pillars, right? That it's not only about academic achievement and the ability for students to earn, in this case, the competencies they need or meeting the competencies they need to graduate on time. But they've also demonstrated a set of employability skill competencies that tie to a certificate that kind of validates their readiness for that. They've had some rich work-based learning experiences that help prepare them for the world of work. beyond high school, and then also that they have a set of strategies they can use from a social emotional learning standpoint. So I would say that our current measure of success is really related to increased attendance, increased engagement in school, and then their ability to graduate. This kind of broadens that a little bit more and taps into those other two areas.
And what kind of SAT scores are these kids have? And you talked about, success after they get their diploma. Can they get into college coming from a program like this? Because they don't have the same, credit, what do you want to call it, transcript that the other kids would have. How does that impact any ability for further?
So they absolutely can, but I'm going to turn it over to the team to talk a little bit about
What's the
what our
transcript
graduates have
look like
done.
when they come out of this?
So currently, our students earn a pass-fail grade. Typically, nobody fails. Everybody, you do their work until it's completed to 100%. And they edit and revise it, and then they earn a P. So in the past, we have, not recently, I would say not over the last 4 years, but in the past, we have had to write letters, or the guidance counselors have written letters when students have applied to college. But it's never been an issue with their transcript with more passes instead of letter grades. The new model, I guess I don't know exactly how that will look, but there are other programs out there that are doing competency-based, and that hasn't been an issue, so.
Student Services thought that they'd be able to communicate kind of what this program looks like, means to colleges that students might be interested. Then eventually, like we've had with Sabre as it currently is, some colleges become familiar with what our program is, and they don't need a separate letter every time.
And on the transcript, rather than listing individual courses, it would list any credits that they came into the program with, because certainly if students are coming in their senior year, they've had credits that they've earned. It would list Sabre Academy program, and it would just list that they've completed essentially the program. And that's how it would show up in the
As far as
transcript.
demonstrating the competencies, the ultimate measure is SAT and ACT scores, right? What do those look like?
Well, it's one standardized measure, right? And certainly
Well, how
ACT
do they
scores
compare
are important.
to our regular students, the students that come out of this program, or going into this program, because they take the PSAT, right, also? There is some testing that they come in with.
Sure. The ACT is the primary assessment, right? That
I know
said,
they're deficient on credits, but then there's, there's seat time and there's knowledge, right? And
yeah.
how does that,
Certainly, we'd seek to increase ACT scores, but there are also placement score criteria, right, as students are admitted to colleges and kind of
and how do they do?
Test into
How
math
do
or
they do?
English.
The ones, what do you predict they'll do? Will they be?
I mean, it's difficult to predict, right? I think we would,
Okay,
we
then
would,
how
we
have
would
they-
hope, we would hope they do well.
Right. So how have they done in the past with the last, the 10-year model that we've been working with?
Yeah.
Historically, we're kind of across the board. I would say we see a lot of kids in the 15 to 22 range. We might see kids lower, and we might see kids. I had a student last year who had a 31. So it's kind of a gamut, because we service a lot of students with mental health issues, and so I feel like at the younger grade levels, some of those issues weren't as prevalent, so then they were engaged in cruising along in their curriculum a little better, and then we have some kids on the lower end who have been disengaged for years. So I guess it's hard to say exactly unless we analyze the data, but it's really kind of
A range.
a range, yeah. And then I think another piece is whether or not students try on the day of the test day. So, we have some kids that we know probably could have scored higher, but they're like,
Disengaged.
oh, I just, filled in my answers, so. So, I think to Nick's point, I feel like that's one mode of assessing them, and we've been talking as a group a lot about students putting together a portfolio, so them leaving with a portfolio of things that they have done to demonstrate their mastery.
What
And
perc-
and I guess to continue on the second part of your question, like what do students do after? We have students that, because of like some connections that that the Sabre Academy staff have made for them. I know there was one student that is now working full-time, or he's through an apprenticeship program, because of exposure that he got early in the first semester through Sabre Academy. So our goal is with like the work-based experiences that if college is a goal for students, then absolutely, like we'll support them to make sure that we're aligning kind of their projects and making sure that we're going to support them in attaining that goal. If their goal after high school is right into a career, then obviously the work-based experiences and the employability skill work will be very beneficial for them in that regard.
Since it's not as time-bound, I'm guessing, did you envision kids exiting school earlier or staying longer, or, because it's not
Do you mean on a daily basis or on an annual basis?
annual basis?
So,
Four-year high school career, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe I need 5.
so
Maybe I can leave it after 3.
at present, we have a number of students who graduate early, and we also have a number of students or a few students who have to kind of finish up in summer to kind of finish their program out. As we envision the redesign of this program, it's our intention to have students stay in the program all the way to the end, because we feel like the way we're defining the program requirements, including the work-based piece of that there's going to be value in that student kind of finishing to the end rather than recovering credits quickly and then graduating early.
Of the students in Sabre Academy, what percent is college-bound versus career-bound? Do you have any rough, I mean, just guesstimate? Because that, I'm looking at the question on the ACT scores.
Yeah.
That would motivate, the kids who are not even thinking about college. Why would I try and worry about the ACT versus the ones who are college-bound? Is there a 75-25 or 50-50, or what is your general percentage?
I would say probably 75 or 80 go straight into the workforce, and maybe 25-30% go to college. I will say historically, we have a lot of students who will contact us like a year after graduation and say, how can I get my transcript? Can you, direct me in the process of applying for college? I think this is my 5th year doing this, and I can think of one student who went right on to a 4-year college. Most of our students choose to go to MATC or WCTC. We also have had a couple years where a lot of students have started at UW-Waukesha. They like the smaller environment and the option to transfer to a 4-year school. But I would say primarily a lot of our students are uncertain about what they want to do in the future, so they decide they're going to work for a while. And I feel like that's a nice component of the new program, is that one of my hopes is that students will engage and have an interest in their future planning at an earlier stage than senior year. So.
I think it's really encouraging to have these core components in our Sabre Academy versus just credit recovery, like just connects, and that will still be in place. So I've never heard of GPS before, but I looked it up, and I think they do a lot of this also from what I saw. Down where in the report where it says, who is the ideal Sabre student, it talks about the building-wide interventions that go on before a student is placed in Sabre Academy. What are some of those building-wide interventions?
Yeah. So I can speak kind of broadly to the work of the Systems of Support team that addressed some of that. So, and I'll let Jordan and Anita speak to what's currently happening. This fall, the team kind of analyzed that and said, what are we doing as a high school? So things like our foundations courses in English and math. We have our peer tutor writing center. We have our peer tutoring program. And I'm sure there are others that they will speak to. But outside of that, then we talked about, all right, where does that need to go in the future? And what are kind of our early warning systems for students when they're in the classroom and not successful? So are those failure rates? Is it assessment data from 8th, 9th grade? What are those things we're looking at? And then how do we expand in the future the types of supports that we're providing? And so the team made a number of recommendations around what those things could look like. And the high school administration will be considering those as they move into their school improvement planning process this summer and into the fall. But Anita and Jordan, do you want to speak to other supports that are occurring in the building presently?
Well, and I think we were also thinking around all aspects of the child and what supports they might need. So to be honest, like a lot of the kids that go into Sabre, or we envision, have so sometimes students have engaged in a lot of support with student services, or the way we've tried to do that in the classroom hasn't been as much as we think they might need if they had this targeted instruction. So I think some of that, thinking about all those pillars or all those components, how have we tried to help them on a larger scale?
And do students have to apply to get into Sabre Academy?
They don't currently. They will under the new program.
Thank you.
And why is that?
Foundation now, but we plan to.
Under
update
the,
that.
under the current program, there's like an intake process where there's a parent meeting and kind of an outline of these are the expectations and this will be kind of your daily schedule. But I think part of the work with the team has been to really set boundaries around the application process, the intake process, even to the point where, you know, we were looking at making it a semester long so that there's no like 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out kind of a thing. And also to look at, you know, is that student almost offering like a trial period to make sure that student's the right fit for Sabre Academy, or if they're looking for just simply credit recovery, working at their own pace, that would be more like a connects fit. If they're looking simply like, hey, I just want to be, you know, working maybe with an online curriculum, but I also want to, you know, work in a machine shop or do something more tech related, then that would be something with GPS. So kind of designing Sabre Academy to fit within that realm of, it's not solely credit recovery and it's not solely employability skills, it's finding that balance there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And item 8B is the Education for Employment Program Report. Mr. Cohen, Mr. Reuter.
Good evening again. As you recall, last May, the representatives from the Education for Employment team came before the board and brought the first draft of our Education for Employment plan, along with a 31-page guidebook that we had created that highlighted really the key processes we were using and kind of the current state around Education for Employment. And so after that approval, the team set to the hard work of developing action steps and starting to move forward with the key components of the plan. And so we spent the last year as a team both putting in place a lot of the things that the plan highlighted and also re-engaging the team in order to continue the development of the goals and the metrics that we're going to be using into the future around that plan. And so the initial Education for Employment team was about 35 members that represented really all kind of walks of the stakeholder group. There were parents, students, there were community partners, there were higher ed partners, administration staff on that team, and the team reformed this past fall with kind of the same makeup. There were some members that cycled off and some that cycled on, but the charge of the team was the same. It's really an advisory team to help us kind of work through the redevelopment of the plan and then carry out some of the critical action steps. And so I've asked Ms. Reed and Ms. Fredericks here this evening to really give you a year in review in terms of how we've done and some of the things that we'll be focusing on as we move into the future.
Hi.
Can we, oh, magic. Thanks. All right. As Nick said, Catherine and I are just going to, I'm going to first review some of the community-based experience kind of aspect of the plan, some of our goals from the past year and data associated with that. Catherine will be sharing some other work around our academic and career planning as well. And then we'll show you guys some of our 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year goals and some of the key action steps that are going to be associated with that. Okay, so here I have listed just a broad overview of kind of the main goals associated with our Ed for Employment plan within community-based experiences and data associated with that. And then in the next couple slides, I'll have some more specifics as well. So for our first goal was to increase our community partnerships by 60%. We were able to achieve an increase of 76% over the past year. We have our data for the past 3 years of the number of our community partners that we've engaged with. So we're currently sitting at 120 community-based partners for the year. Our next goal was to retain 98% of our community partnerships with high satisfaction based on post-experience survey data. I'm still collecting that data, so that is to be determined if we've met that goal or not. I'll get back to you in the fall. Our next goal is to increase the number of career-based learning experiences at Franklin High School by 50%. Our increase for the year was 53%. And you can see our overall data there. As I said, in the next slide, I'll show you more specifics within that. But we had 1,077 career-based experiences occur throughout this past year. Another area that we worked on a lot over the past year was promotion of these experiences and recognition of our community partners. So one goal was to strategically promote opportunities for community involvement with Franklin Public Schools, and then also to develop a system for recognizing our current community partners and highlighting those strong, new, and unique partnerships. So on the next slide, I'll walk through some of a breakdown of that career-based learning experience data. So for some pieces, I have the past 3 years of data shown at the top there. So for our youth apprenticeships, number of community internships, formal job shadows, the number of our students that have community mentors, and the number of our students going through the Certified Nursing Assistant Program with MATC. So as you can see, those numbers over the past 3 years, where we are our current total for this past year on the bottom. And then the table below that are just some other experiences from this past year that go into that total of 1,077 career-based learning experiences. So some other experiences that go into that are our high school-based internships, any career-based guest speakers, so any guest speakers that come in to talk about their career or work or associated with that. Also site visits, so work site tours, office tours, etc., mock interviews, and community-based projects. So we had some projects where students were working on something for a community partner. Yeah, so that is all of our data from this year. Also around the promotion and recognition goals that were on the first slide. Really that all came together through our work with the formation of our Sabre Business Alliance. So the Sabre Business Alliance was launched this year, this spring, and it's an official group of all of the individuals and companies that partner with Franklin Public Schools in providing career-based learning experiences for our students. So if you look at all those experiences from the last slide, anybody that contributed or worked any companies or people that partnered in those experiences are officially part of our Sabre Business Alliance. And we just felt this was a great way to formalize that group of community partners that we have and provide opportunities to recognize everything that they do for our district and bring them together. Like I said, we officially launched the Alliance at our first annual Partner Recognition Breakfast on May 22nd. I know many of you were able to be there, which was very much appreciated. I'm glad you could join. At that event, we shared our new website that we launched, sabrebusinessalliance.com. That's also linked on our district website as well. And we also recognized or created a recognition system for different levels of partnership. If you want to click on that one. Yeah, thank you. It'll just take to the page of the website showing all of our different level partners. So as you can see, we have platinum, gold, silver, and bronze level partners are all displayed on here. And then at the very bottom is just all of our other community partners. And then if you want to scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll click on the criteria. So the way that these partnership levels were determined was based on the number of experiences that these partners had provided for our students. So as you can see, there's some different points, or different experiences fall under different levels of points, just determined by level of commitment, time commitment, and resource commitment. And then totaling up all of those points for a company would get them their different recognition levels. So as you can see, we had one platinum level partner for the past year, and that was the Ascension Wheaton Healthcare Network, mainly the hospital on 27th Street. They So platinum level's like 45 points or more, and I want to say they were like 80 points or something extremely high. They provided over 100 career-based learning experiences for our students over the past year. They were a really great partner. And they were provided and given an award at the breakfast as well, recognizing that partnership. These levels will be updated on an annual basis, and each spring, at the recognition event, we will recognize those partners. They were all given framed certificates at the breakfast, so we'll do that on an annual basis.
You have to earn it every year.
Yeah. Yeah, you start back at 0 the
Okay.
next year.
All right. Just saying maybe.
Thank you. We also created another award that we're calling the Sabre Business Alliance Advocate of the Year. And that award was created to recognize an individual who's really contributed to the success of the Business Alliance, has really advocated for businesses to partner with our students. And that year, or this year, it was awarded to Tom Scholes of Crohn's Inc. He's the VP of Manufacturing for Crohn's down in the business park. And he has really been a great partner to us over the past couple of years, really pushing for a lot of different businesses to get involved, has spoke at multiple events, has served on our Ed for Employment team the past 2 years. And so he was presented with that award. Lastly, at that event, we released a series of promotional videos that we have created. We created one kind of overarching video kind of explaining the Sabre Business Alliance and the partnerships that we do. And then we also had 3 shorter videos highlighting different student partner stories. So I think a lot of you have probably seen the main one already, and honestly I'm tired of showing my face a lot. So I wanted to show one of our student stories here, just in case you haven't seen all of them yet. So this is a video about one of our students, Victoria, who's worked with at the Wheaton Franklin Hospital over the past year.
In 5th grade, and that was a pretty big transition for me. Eventually, I blossomed a little by little.
It is a way for us to be able to expose students to the potential of the career and to see what other things can happen from nursing.
I did a college visit at MSOE, and they had us with the nursing simulation. They asked us to pretend like we were in the hospital setting with the patient, and nobody was really stepping up, but I just stepped up because I knew how to do it, and I really wasn't scared. Like, I knew what I was doing, and that showed from being at work all the time.
Traditionally, as we sit in a hospital right now, that's traditional nursing. And so when you think about nursing, and a piece of knowledge that I received from a colleague when I was a brand new nurse was, as a nurse, never feel stuck in your role because there's so many opportunities.
Working at Wheaton, I've been exposed to a lot more people. And like working with the nurses, they're really nice, and they all care about me and my education, and that I'm going to college and getting that BSN for nursing and just doing what I love.
So I encourage you, if you have not seen all of the videos yet, please visit the website, sabrebusinessalliance.com, and watch them. The company we partnered with did just an amazing job with them, and we really hope we can continue to use these videos to not only promote more businesses to come and work with us and partner with our students, but really to showcase some of the amazing work that's going on in the district and promote to parents and students as well. Yeah, and that's all I have for mine. Ms. Reed?
I have one question though. How do students access your services? You know, is it through one particular class, or is you get a little office and you just scoot on in and say, I want to see what an astronaut does? Is that
All of the above.
all the above?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are certain experiences are aligned to specific courses. So for example, the community-based mentors are aligned to our capstone courses. So currently this year we only had 2 courses that's involved in. Next year we'll have 5. So students can access it through that way. Youth apprenticeship, it's open to any student that applies and is eligible. Through the Inroads program, they're all required to do career-based job shadowing and a work-based experience their senior year, so I mentor and work with all of those students. Other resources, a lot of career speakers and site visits, teachers, a lot of, I am available to teachers to help provide them with connections or set up those
So
experiences.
they're kind of guided to you then? They're not just waking up one day saying, it's time to pick a career?
Yeah, and through all of our work with academic and career planning, students are guided to think about some of these things, and then I also go in and will visit during, course selection time or different times like that. I'll go in and talk about these different programs and classes.
So they know who you are, you walk in the halls and...
Yeah, so probably not everybody yet, but I'm working on it.
Okay.
Not all the students.
Great.
Well, it's a really good segue actually into some of the work in the academic and career planning realm. The idea that students need to take time to identify their interests, identify their skills and their strengths, and plan for what experiences and what skills they will need in order to be successful in career, college, and life. And through our work with the Education for Employment team, we have presented the idea that these types of experiences, these 4 categories of experiences, are really important for students to have in order to be ready, in order to have gone through a process like Victoria did in the video, where she was able to test out her skills, test out her interests, and make sure that she was making good choices. And it actually gives students a great deal of confidence walking into a test of those things in the real world, just like she had in her work-based experience. So these 4 areas are what we are calling readiness experiences, and our hope is that students will be able to access experiences in all 4 of these categories. And I'll go through them briefly. The first in the upper left-hand corner is a sequence of courses leading to a capstone experience. The sequence of courses are related to a student's area of interest in their career field, if they have one identified. And what we have here just listed is Biomedical Innovations, or REACH. Those are 2 courses that are capstone level courses for students who are interested in pursuing an area, a medical field, or they may be interested in going into education. The REACH course is designed to cover both of those areas. That's a capstone. Preceding those courses are a number of other courses that kids can take in order to prepare for that high-level class. Within that capstone experience, as Rachel was mentioning, there are lots of other types of experiences, including, and probably most importantly, the mentoring work and work-based experience that students have an opportunity to do in the community with our community partners. So that sequence of courses builds the academic skills and leads to that high-level experience in the capstone. We also believe that students should have opportunities to earn and experience dual credit coursework within their program, and that is helpful for students to be most successful going forward after high school, whether they are engaging in college-level work or going right into the workforce. That is known to be a true indicator of readiness. So within this example of a student leading to something in the medical field, the Project Lead the Way courses, the REACH course, our Certified Nursing Assistant, and if they choose to go into one of the academies, the Practical Nursing Academy through MATC is an opportunity for seniors to take a number of courses at MATC, leading to certification after 1 year.
What is
So
REACH? I'm sorry. I don't
REACH.
know.
Let's see if I can pull that out of my memory. It is a capstone course where students, it's actually the tail end of our child development coursework, and it replaces child development 3 and 4. Students who are in that course are earning and working with young children and earning certification as assistant child care teacher or child care teacher. And I believe they're adding another certification for infant toddler.
So ACH,
it's
assistant
working
child
with
care.
young children.
So the acronym is,
Yeah, thank you.
Revitalizing Education in Child Health.
Thank you.
So It's the child health care end and the education end.
Everybody guessed.
Which is why I can't remember it.
They gotta work.
So those dual credit opportunities, that we have a number of those in our school across the board. It would also include AP courses that a student might be taking if they're going into a medical school. They would certainly be taking AP biology and chemistry and things like that. We also encourage students to earn a certification or a credential that is recognizable within the industry that they're pursuing. So in this case, certified nursing assistant, and of course the employability skill certificate that students can earn if they are engaged in an internship or working as a certified nursing assistant in a youth apprenticeship. And then finally, that work-based learning opportunity, which typically in this case would be the youth apprenticeship, and I've highlighted nursing assistant. We've certainly had students participate as nursing assistants through youth apprenticeship, and we have a number of those this year and increasing annually. So this kind of creates that picture of what does it mean to be ready? How do students get ready through these types of experiences? The Education for Employment team spoke about our future goals in order to help students to become ready and to have those experiences and walk out of our doors confident in what they are about to do, whatever their next step is. We have created annual goals, a 3-year goal and 5-year goal around increasing those community partnerships to give students more opportunities so that more students have the ability to work with our mentors and partners and have those authentic work-based experiences, whether it's a job shadow or youth apprenticeship or an internship, or bringing people into our schools to work with kids in the classroom. We also have a retention goal that Rachel mentioned. She is working on gathering the data in terms of the number of partners that are coming back each year. So we will have better information around that, but that will be a continuing goal to continue to work on that. In the next 3 years, our goals include increasing the total number of work-based learning experiences in the high school by 100%. We currently have, I think, a total number, shift my page, of 89, so within 3 years we would be looking at having around 180 or more of those work-based experiences. Now those would be those high-level youth apprenticeship where students are actively working and earning that employability skill certificate by being placed in an internship or youth apprenticeship. Percentage of Franklin High School graduates who have earned an industry credential or certificate will increase by 25%. Right now, we don't have an exact measure by percent, but we know that we've had students earn upwards of 150 of these certifications. And as we begin to develop a way to track the number of, the percentage of students who earn those, we believed and created an estimate that we would be able to see 25% of our graduating class earning an industry recognized credential by the time they graduate.
Ms. Reed, if I could just jump in on that one. So our current data is about 12% of our graduating class has earned a credential or industry certification. So we're hoping to increase that from 12% to 25%.
Great, thanks for that correction.
And it's each student, I mean, if one student has 2, it's still only one.
One student. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
In addition, by the end of that 2021 school year, we want to get to a point where we have 100% of our students engaged in universal instruction across the district related to those skills, habits, and mindsets that we believe are tied to success going forward, that are not necessarily the skills that they're learning in the classroom or the skills that they're gaining in those experiences, but what is it that students need in order to be ready to learn, ready to work, and ready to be successful in life. The number of students participating in work-based experiences in the manufacturing sector, we would like to see that go up by 200% in the next 3 years as we build out that manufacturing program. And within 5 years, 100% of our students will demonstrate proficiency in financial literacy standards as a result of implementing a required course at the high school that's going to roll up with our next year's group of freshmen, we will be able to reach that goal. And in addition, we have plans to build in financial literacy skills in the elementary level as well as the middle school. The next steps that we are working on and planning for is to continue to develop those new high school courses. As Rachel mentioned, we will have 5 capstone courses next year that really bring in that high level of community participation, and we're hoping to expand that beyond the career and tech ed portion of our school. The Sabre Business Alliance continues to grow, and we have some events in the works in the coming year to continue to nurture that organization with a back-to-school networking event. The installation of a recognition wall at the high school where we can recognize those partners publicly for all students, staff, and the community to see, and including some mentor training and networking opportunities so that we continue to foster those relationships. In addition to the Sabre Business Alliance, we know we have quite a number of alumni, and to this point, we haven't had the opportunity to engage those alumni. We do have an alumna from Franklin High School on the Ed for Employment team who has expressed an interest in helping to build that capacity for us to tap into those alumni as a source for student mentors, partnerships, and so on. In addition, the Sabre Manufacturing course, professional organizations, some of our Ed for Employment team members had suggested the idea of beginning to work with professional organizations, trade organizations, student organizations at local colleges to bring in opportunities for our students and also to make additional connections for Sabre Business Alliance. Development of the Sabre Manufacturing course continues with the manufacturing advisory. Our manufacturing teacher is actively recruiting folks to support the work of building that manufacturing program. Eventually that will serve as a school-based manufacturing facility meeting the needs of the local community. And finally, academic and career planning and social emotional learning. We are beginning to see that the skills, habits, and mindsets that students need in order to be successful cross over between employability skills and social emotional learning. And a key step going forward is to engage teams in the district to identify the what and the how of supporting those skills across the district so that we can help our students to be ready.
Just one question. Do we ever engage our teachers with our partners? Take a teacher into a manufacturing environment, this is how math looks in this environment, or this is how science looks. Do you ever get our teachers back in those job situations?
I do remember going to Crohn's with a number of teachers several years ago, and that is a suggestion that came out of some of the discussions we had at our last Ed for Employment team meeting, that ideal professional development for teachers would be to get them on site and engage them with the people who are hiring the students eventually.
We don't have plans to do that, though.
I would say that the level of intensity around that depends on the teachers who are closest to that programming at the moment. Certainly, there's value in exposing everyone to what's happening in the community, and I think we'll continue to look for ways to do that. But right now, the teachers who most directly have that opportunity are the ones who are developing curriculum that's most aligned to that work. And so when that alignment exists, we've been bringing them on site, and they've been engaging with our partners. But certainly, there's value in everybody being exposed to those sorts of experiences.
And I know that a year ago, there was a lot of excitement, I think it was a year ago, maybe longer, but the makerspace, what's happening with the makerspace? When can I come in to make my new product?
Yeah, so the Accelerator Lab is
Couple ideas in one.
up and running. All 3 of those spaces that we talked about when Mr. Deblack was in to kind of share that information are up and functional and being utilized. Our initial plans for that space are to use it primarily with our classes. So if you recall, in November, the board approved a new course at the high school called Technical Innovations, which is based in that Accelerator Lab and designed to provide opportunities for interns to go into classrooms and take the equipment in a mobile way into other curricular areas. In terms of community access, we're using it right now to align with some of our community-based experiences that are tied to courses. For example, the business capstone course, there are opportunities to potentially prototype and produce in there and have our partners support around some of that. Our engineering design development course utilizes that space quite a bit. And so, you know, we're kind of going slow to go fast around some of that work. The space is in a good place. We're building the curriculum around the technical innovations course, and we're outreaching to the high school to try to bring more people in. And I think our you know, down the road, as we think about how it fits some of the other work-based experiences we're talking about, we'll continue to look for ways to bring the community into that experience.
And have you seen the library's space and how they promote that? Is there any, you drawing any connections there with the community? And
Yeah, I think we're always looking for those opportunities to partner, right? And certainly they have some equipment available there, and they bring the community into that space. So we'll continue to look for opportunities to you know, partner with anyone who wants to partner with us.
And I guess from my travel experience around the community, they have maker fairs now where you can go and people have, they're more than craft fairs, although you might think they're that, but people are making wonderful things and selling them, and the creativity is amazing once you have access to some of these tools. And so there's a lot of potential there.
Yep, I agree.
But there's a lot of creative people still in the community also that we might reach out to.
I agree.
That's what I'm saying.
I think the goals for the plan are exciting and ambitious, and I just look forward to the future here. And every time, you know, I've said it before at the Chamber of Commerce meetings, you know, there's always someone new that wants to get involved when they hear Rachel give her little talks, and all the compliments the district gets for what we're doing. It's just exciting, and you're doing great things.
Yeah, it's really energizing work, and our entire Education for Employment team, certainly led by Ms. Reed and Ms. Fredericks, have done a phenomenal job in really a 1 year's time, kind of taking all of that work and kind of leading to all these great results for kids. So
I know we're very excited about looking forward, but I can't help but think back to the Bring Your Child to Work Day events that was such a national effort to really expose kids to work environments that just, I don't know what happened to it, but I think it was a cool event. You know, if you've ever been in a workspace where all of a sudden the kids show up, it's just, I thought that was valuable. I don't know what happened to it, but
yeah, I don't know.
I think that was a first connection where we were trying to make some of that happen. So think about it. Bring it back.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay, we have 8C, the District 4K program update. Mr. Roy?
Thank you. Coming around the board table is a document I composed just timelining out the events that have taken place since February 28th, when Dr. Miller, Mr. Cohn, and myself first shared our intent to move forward with a collaborative committee to bring forward a proposal to the board in October of 2018 to approve 4K programming in Franklin Public Schools. So I've outlined the purpose of our collaborative committee. We've met twice since our inception, and you can see the breakdown of our purpose. It's to gain a better understanding of the research base and programming of 4K in a public school setting, gather information from our community and constituents to better understand the needs for 4K programming, provide feedback, our committee will, from their various aspects that they bring to the table and their experiences, and then ultimately to create that proposal to bring to you in October of 2018. And you can see a breakdown of our committee members. We have 27 members that have met twice now. Ms. Larson and Mr. Nielsen are our school board members, and you'll see that we have 2 community-based members, district administration, 5K teachers, and a parent that represents 6 of our 7 schools. There were no high school parents interested in representing the high school at this time. So that team has worked collaboratively, and I'm just going to walk you through the timeline of events of what has happened and what we intend to happen in those collaborative committee meetings. So at any time, if you have questions, please feel free to interrupt me and ask me. So in April, after we presented to you in February, I met with the outlined community partners who currently have 4K programs from the private sector, and met with each of their directors of their programming to share with them this timeline of intent, to share that we would be moving forward with a proposal to the school board in October.
But they're not represented in the committee, though?
Correct,
They're not?
correct,
There's no provider?
correct.
Do you think maybe they would have some input in that, on the committee?
So when I met with each of them, I said this, we're looking for community representation, and I had no takers.
No takers, okay. It was offered.
So I will be following up. I told them I will be meeting with them midway through the summer, which is coming up, as well as prior to moving forward with a proposal to the board to continue to update them on our progress as well, knowing that they're part of our community and they currently provide 4K or early childhood support to the children of Franklin. So that was April for me individually, meeting with each of the directors of those programs. And then in May, the collaborative committee convened for the first time. We reviewed a research base of public school 4K programming and some of the information that was shared to the board in February around the long-term cost saving for a district and the long-term academic and social success of students in quality 4K public school programs. From there, just this last week, Thursday, almost a week ago, the collaborative committee came together and we looked at we looked at high-performing school districts with similar demographics to us and their 4K programs from a school-based perspective, as well as we looked at the Wisconsin Early Learning Standards and understanding play-based instruction and what that means in early childhood programming. Additionally, the data was shared here, and you'll see the breakdown in this small spreadsheet of our 5K cohorts from the 16-17 school year, as well as the 17-18 school year, and the percentage of parents that selected at online enrollment time that their child had some sort of preschool or 4K experience prior to setting foot in Franklin Public Schools as kindergartners. Now, I want to explain that a little more in depth, what that means. When parents enroll during kindergarten screening, they have the option to check that my child experienced a 4K or early childhood program. Once they select that, they hand type in what that program is. It varies from any of the providers I outlined all the way to the Jewish Community Center in Mequon, open enrollment to Greendale or Oak Creek, or some people wrote down home. So it's a wide gamut of when you look at those percentages as to what was defined by the parent, not defined by us as a district as a preschool or 4K experience. So as you can see, just this last academic year, our kindergartners who will be first graders, parents district-wide said that 52% of that population had some type of preschool or 4K experience prior to starting the school year in Franklin Public Schools as kindergartners. Any questions on that data?
So how would you interpret that? That, you know, the needs kind of met, or it's not met? Or what's your interpretation of that?
My interpretation is we have a wide definition of what an early childhood or 4K program is, because I printed a 6-page document from InfoSnap, our online registration, that shows what parents delineated as a early childhood or 4K experience, where there are certain providers that are within district boundaries like Jubilee or Faith Academy that have quality programs, yes, but then there were this wide variety of, they went to the neighbor's house as a 4K program or an early childhood program. So I would say that when you look at the breakdown per school, you have some of our bigger schools have higher percentages, yet only without a school-based or community-based program, we're only hitting about 50% of kids have some type of experience. DPI says that in a startup year for a school-based program, you usually draw low-end 70% of your eligible population. Ultimately, 4K is not statutorily required, and for some parents, it's the first experience that their child leaves their home. So as you look at this, even if it is a private program, parents that may have young children and one of the spouses does not work want to keep their child home until they're statutorily required to send their children to school, whether it be public or private. Does that answer your question?
It'd be interesting to see, as just data, if obviously Pleasant View and Robinwood are high end, almost 60%. So we implement a program, we're only picking up another 10% if you go what your 70 is ultimately the end game that we can expect. I would wonder how their achievement compares to, Southwood Glen has 41%
Right.
do those experiences.
And we'd have to look at that,
Yes,
those
right,
cohorts
I'm
over
just-
time.
Right,
that-
I'm just,
Yeah. So in like 15 years, we can come back and see where they've progressed in their college and career readiness
okay,
levels. So.
all right.
As well, we looked at some neighboring districts, as I said, their 4K programs in the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards and how those weave into the standards that the board has approves annually as Wisconsin Model Academic Standards. Our intent then in July is to come back together to develop I should also articulate and highlight that Dr. Miller and I shared at the meeting that it's district administration's recommendation to move forward with a proposal. We have to decide what type of proposal we'd want to move forward with, and that'd be a school-based program. And the reason for being, sixth grade will have moved to the new middle school in the 1920 school year, which alleviates space, but that's not the main reason. The main reason would be that we would have fully licensed DPI early childhood teachers under our guys' supervision and evaluation, as well as a curriculum and standards that the board would adopt and be able to deliver those high expectations across the board for at each of the sites that would host.
So you did look at other models, though, community-based model.
Correct. We have to decide as we move through the proposal
Right,
process.
I'm just wondering how you limited the community-based.
We have a
as
wide,
an option.
yeah, good question. We have a wide variety of community programs right now that are not all at the same level. And this way, with the availability of space, startup grant costs, cost per pupil, we can control those type of things as well as the quality of the program within our own confines, as well as there's something to be said about starting 4K within a school that you're going to continue your career upon.
But the community-based model does allow control, though. correct?
It does, certain aspects, yes.
Even teacher qualifications? Is that, I mean,
I don't know that answer for sure offhand, but the school-based model distinguishes you must have a qualified DPI licensed early childhood teacher instructing, as well as certain curricula that's in place, as well as certain resources and supplies.
which could be the same as community-based. You don't know that for a fact.
I can't quote that, but I can get that information to you. We have more governing control with the school-based model than we do with the community-based model.
I can see that, but it just seems that, we're trying to work with our community, we're trying to be more collaborative, but we feel that we need control here in this program, Did we look, hard at maintaining some kind of community, it gives us community reach also.
So I will share that the collaborative committee, when that was brought up, I asked if anyone had negative thoughts to that, and the parent group, and the community members, that's who I wanted to hear from, and everyone said that a school-based program is what they would
What
like
do
to
you
see, as well as when asked of each director of the community programs we currently had, if they would like to be collaborative and work on the team, we had no takers for that as well. So not that that's the end-all, be-all, but we have to decide which venue we want to go down as we move forward, because there are tight timelines and regulations with DPI to get certain grants and startup costs. So if we continue to explore, we can't meet the timeline of proposal to start.
Right, but I think we should be
process.
clear on our reasons on why we went this way when this other option does happen, right? I don't know around the
Yeah.
state how many of those models
And it's
exist.
varying per district.
Okay. All right.
The goal is to ensure the highest levels of quality and equity for all children of this community.
Yeah. Once you put that word equity in there, I guess I'm
Yeah.
moving over. Maybe.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. So in July, then, we'll be coming back together to develop protocols as a team. We'll be holding a Be Heard session, which is not a requirement of the school-based model, but it's something that we feel we want to be able to have an open forum for parents, community members, whether you have children in this district or not, to come in and share questions, concerns, as well as we'll run through protocols of questions to ask them. Dr. Miller and I are working with School Perceptions next week to discuss possible surveying of the community as well, and we'll report back to you on what that would look like if we move forward with a district-wide survey. As you can see in August, then, we'll be holding 2 Be Heard sessions, morning option for community and parents at Ben Franklin Elementary at 9:30 and 10:30, so if you're able to attend, that would be great, as well as a nighttime option we'll hold at Franklin High School. And again, there'll be like a World Cafe format where we solicit feedback and information from those who attend. So the team will be working in July to put those protocols in place.
You don't have the dates yet for August.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put the date in there. I do, I will.
Okay.
I'll get that to you guys, I'm sorry. And then in September, the team will then take all of the data that have, as well as the research and information that we've worked through, looking at other programs, and then put together that final proposal to share with you in October. It's the intent, I spoke with Ms. Ms. Witkowski today, to provide more frequent updates to you as we progress, so that you're not reading a 50-page report the night of the October board meeting, but to be able to give you some updates. Mr. Milzer, Dr. Miller and I will be working together throughout the summer as we look at startup grant and cost per pupil and what that looks like. And I know the question was probably going to be raised this last year, and it changes yearly based on the number of applicants. And again, there's only 3 districts, I believe, right now that are K-12 that do not have a 4K program in the state of Wisconsin. So our startup cost per pupil might be higher than other districts have had in the past, since there's not as many people on the waiting list. But the last fiscal year, it was a $3,000 per pupil startup cost for year 1, and then year 2 was $1,500 for the districts that implemented 4K last year. And then we're looking at moving forward with the proposal that's a 0.6 reimbursement, meaning that we would receive roughly, based on our enrollment, $4,200 per student, which is a 0.6 of the open enrollment costs currently.
So the district still provides some funding towards it?
Correct. Correct. So that is the quick update of the work with 4K that the committee's done.
And there'll be a financial component that you'll cover?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
very detailed.
Good. Thank you.
August 23rd is the Be Heard meeting time.
Both of them the same day.
Yes, both, one morning, one afternoon. And I'd like to thank Mr. Brandis and Ms. Edbauer. They've been integral in our planning and work around this too, from a teacher and principal perspective. So, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Item 8D is approval of the 2018-19 FSOEA wage increase. It's an action item. Mrs. Ellenhausen.
Thank you. Good evening. Mr. Milzer and I had the opportunity to meet with representatives from the FSOEA regarding bargaining, and in conjunction with other employment groups that the board has approved at a prior meeting, we are seeking approval to issue the SOEA wage increase of a 0% to base wage and approve a 2.13%, which is CPI, wage increase in supplemental pay for this work group as well.
Can you repeat that again, the percentage?
2.13.
2.1.
0% for base wage and 2.13 in supplemental pay.
Okay. So I'm looking, is that 2 motions or 1?
One motion. Do you want me to repeat the requested motion?
Sure.
We're seeking a motion to approve a wage increase of 0% for base wage and to approve a 2.13% wage increase in supplemental pay.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Larson, second by Mr. Lewis. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, one question. So will there ever be a change in base?
Only if approved through the bargaining process. And the district's past bargains have issued it through supplemental pay and not through base wage increase.
So I guess I'm confused. So you're saying the bargaining process has resulted in it being supplemental, or?
That's the district's
Oh,
proposal,
that's-
yes.
Okay. I'm just saying, would you ever propose that?
Only if that were to be what the board and the administration agreed to as we head into bargaining in the future.
What's the advantage of doing just supplemental?
We have control over, 100% control over the distribution of those dollars. So that when you provide a base increase, everyone gets that. Or the union can negotiate who gets it. They have say in where the money goes.
And as a board, and in conjunction with the administration, our position over the past years has been to distribute it through supplemental pay so that the board can, one, decide to go above or below CPI. In this case, it's aligned with CPI, but the board then has that ability to do that. And then two, determine if the increases are not distributed necessarily equitably, as opposed to through the collective bargaining process.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mrs. Evans?
Aye.
Mrs. Witkowski?
Aye.
And I say yes.
Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8E is approval of the 2018-19 CISA 1 contract. This is an action item. Who's that going to?
Well, Ms. Freeman, of course, could
Oh, yeah.
answer any questions
Yeah.
about the services that we're contracting for, but it is a requirement that the board approve
Yeah.
this contract.
Were there any questions on the document?
What's the change from last year?
I don't have last year's in front of me. I believe that we may have had one additional seat at New Connections that is not on this current contract. We also have a slight change for our teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. Last year, we had purchased an FTE for a .6 position. And based on a decrease in enrollment, we are now paying for that through a unit cost. And so that was a cost savings of, I'm not sure exactly, I think it probably around 15,000 or so.
CISA raised their fees this year too, I think 15%.
15%?
I can't.
You mean
guarantee.
their membership fee or their rates?
Oh, the rates. I'm not positive if it was 15%. I know they raised their fees. But
Still a bargain, right?
any other questions? I'm looking for a motion to approve the 2018-19 CISA 1 contract. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Larson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gamble. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And item 8F, approval of the 2018-19 SWSA agreement.
Again, this is an annual contract that I'm seeking approval from the board. I have found working with the SWSA to be extremely beneficial in terms of learning about the political landscape around education. They're also a resource to us in terms of research from the Hanover organization, and it's a great network of superintendents and board members that can work collaboratively. So I highly recommend that this district continue to support our membership in SWSA, and I'm sure Ms. Evans would agree with me as she's attended just about as many meetings as I have this year.
And that financial commitment is $3,200?
Correct.
I think we can afford it.
Yeah, it's not very expensive, actually, for what they provide. They do a lot of legwork. Yeah. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the 2018-19 SWSA agreement.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Larson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Witkowski. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8G is the 2018-19 district budget presentation. Mr. Milzer.
Yes, tonight is the first draft of the budget for 18-19. The staff has been working on it for several months already, and I'll be projecting for just a little bit here. budget document is online for everyone to see. We're right at the beginning of the process, this being the first draft. At the annual meeting in August, we'll have the second draft, and then in October, we'll have the final draft of the budget after we get our information from the state and we know how many students we'll have. We'll come back to this in July, so you'll have 3 weeks to take a look at the document, ask any questions. Just send them to me and I'll get the answers to all of the board members. It's a budget that's the culmination of everything that you've heard about, all of the wonderful things going on in instruction, the staffing that we talked about, all of that is covered by the budget. It's important to know that almost all the factors at this point are estimates, and that's how we know that the budget will be different in October than this one, but it will be close, but it's always a little bit different. So I'll introduce the budget tonight and go over some of the highlights. As we know, enrollment plays a key part in the revenue limit, and we're projecting to increase resident student count by 20 students for next year. And again, just keeping track, the board approved 67 open enrollment seats. On our health and dental insurance, we had a 2-year rate guarantee on dental, so that rate isn't changing. And then due to the staff working on healthy habits this year, our health insurance rates will remain the same for 2018-19 as well. Now we'll take a look at our revenue and where that comes from. The green part of that pie graph is the local tax revenue. The blue is the state and federal aid, and the red is the local non-tax revenue. Together, the green and the blue pretty much make up the revenue limit, and everything is keyed on the blue, which is the money from the state and federal government. If that piece of the pie gets larger, then the green piece, the local tax revenue, is smaller, and vice versa. And we'll look at expenditures. The blue, which represents 75.5% of our budget, is salaries and benefits. And if you think about it, that makes sense. There's a lot of people involved in educating students. Purchase services, 17.4%, and other, which is supplies and things like that, 7%, and that's pretty typical. Looking at the tax implications, we're looking at an estimated 1.5% increase in the total levy for educating children, long-term debt, and then recreation and community education. We did have a larger than average increase in our equalized value last year, which we would think would mean that we would get less equalized aid. And however, there's more money going into that formula for next year, so we are projecting that we'll receive a little more, which helps to keep that tax levy down. And then translating that into a number for a property would be just a little bit less than $18 increase per $100,000 of assessed value. And again, the caution sign, they're very tentative estimates because the assessed valuation isn't known. We don't know the number of students for next year, won't know that until September. The amount of state aid has not been determined, and the state budget not finalized for the ensuing year. Looking at where we fall in our tax rate history from '86 to the present, we're still at a 51% reduction in the tax rate over that time, so still historically low. And then this format is the adoption format of the budget that the board will approve in July. There are a couple things I'd like to point out that are different this year. The Department of Public Instruction made changes in the accounting numbers for technology, and that's being driven by the federal government. From what they're telling us, the federal government wants to collect more information from local school districts across the country. So they're redoing some of their reports, and in turn, we have to redo some things too. So you'll notice that technology used to be all in the 266,000 function. There's none of it there anymore. They took it out entirely and split it between an administrative type support and student or instruction-based support. So we've had to divide that out. In addition, they've changed some of the objects. The main one that we used to use for maintenance and buildings and grounds can't be used for that anymore. It's used for technology, and they changed the numbers on that as well. So as you go through, you'll see some flip-flops of which looks like big reductions and big increases, especially in the first category, which includes technology. But if you look at them in total, you'll see that they either balance out or are actually coming down a little bit in those areas.
Can I ask a quick?
Sure.
I know we're going to be talking about fees. Fee policy is up on this agenda. So we're not really increasing it too much in this budget, but actual is 683,000 versus 553. I don't know what the prior year was, if that was unusual, but there seems to be quite a variance there. And I guess you can get back to me if you don't have it.
Yeah, I would have to go back and look. It includes other things other than student fees. Facility use could have been larger that year. Most likely something like that. Student fees, the amount the district receives doesn't vary greatly from year to year. And it's only maybe a third of that amount. Third to half, depending on which one we're looking at.
So in equalized aid, you're only under like 180,000?
The increase?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We're projecting an increase, but not a big
Not
increase.
much.
Right. So I'll let you enjoy the last 35 pages on your own. And again, if you have questions, let me know, and I'll make sure everyone gets their answers. And that's all I had.
Does anyone have any comments right now that you didn't?
Any big ideas, big highlights, big changes, something big? Or is it pretty much standard, continue as we are? Although I can't believe that because there's so much excitement going on.
All of that excitement is in this budget right here. It's
Okay.
extremely exciting.
Anything?
All of those changes we talked about.
It's in there.
They're in here.
Okay.
It's good.
All right. What about that big building across the street? Are we preparing for that opening in any way in this budget?
Yes, we'll have some additional custodial hours towards the tail end of this year.
That's in there?
As well as some moving expenses to move from one building to the other, some of the things that we're taking along. So there are some.
Some things are starting to, what about anything that would be base building? Well, custodial would be base building because those would continue, correct? Okay. And any changes in sports programs or anything, or?
No, not really.
No? Okay. All right. I'm sure I'll have a few more questions.
You might.
Right. There's no limit in the number? Is there a number that, like
We're
top 20?
we're always trying to keep it under 10, but
Under-
you know,
oh,
if you wanted to go
sorry,
to
I can't
20, you
promise.
could.
Okay.
Jim, the city of Franklin is reassessing again this year. And it makes some sense because the level of inflation and everything seems to be picking up, so assessments will probably be going up. If that goes up, how does that impact us?
It doesn't really impact the district on how much money we receive.
Oh, I can't fathom that. If my house right now is assessed at 100,000, and they change it to 200,000, you're telling me that's not gonna impact any money that you're getting?
No. Our
Your
tax
rate will
rate will
change.
drop in half.
Your rate will
Because
change.
they changed the rate.
Yeah.
We,
So the 1.5% increase in the levy would actually be a reduction. Because last year, assessments went up. We didn't change the levy at all.
right, the levy is the amount that we tell the city we need, and then they do the calculations for how much everyone's paying, but we never get a penny more than what we asked for.
They adjusted.
So in a reassessment, there are winners and losers. There are properties that their value goes down and they pay less, and those that go up and they pay more. But in total, none of the taxing jurisdictions get any more money than they would have otherwise.
And this is.
So when
they've
you're
done it-
talking winners and losers, we're gonna be the loser. Because if the assessments are going up.
Well, they've done it 3 years in a row, and they said they're gonna do it every year now.
Right.
Yeah, so you're lucky, because mine's gone up 3 years in a row, yours didn't, so you can have it again.
Your house you have a higher value house.
If you sell it.
The more often they do the reassessment, the more level the increases should be. If they let it go too long, then you get the wide swings where you have one property going up 30% and some going down 10.
Then all the complaining.
And that makes for very unhappy people.
Right.
But even when yours went up 30%, your tax bill didn't go up 30%. It was the valuation, and they adjust the numbers, so there aren't huge swings.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Good question.
Anything else? Okay, so when you get our questions, are you gonna combine them all and send the answers at the end of 3 weeks?
No, I think I'll send them as I answer them,
Okay,
unless you'd rather it was the other way.
no, it's whatever you wanna do. Then you
Yeah.
won't keep getting the same questions.
Right, right.
Okay. Thank you. 8H is the Forest Park construction report. Mr. Milzer.
Well, you probably noticed when you drove in that the driveway is gone.
Yeah.
Hard to miss.
And there was a swimming pool there yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
There's no water today.
Yes. So they came in and ground that out and left some of that gravel there so that we wouldn't sink in the mud, which was nice of them. They'll continue working on that this summer to get it to the right place, and then by the end of the summer, I think that they lay down their first course of asphalt, and then it'll remain in that condition for another year. They'll also be putting in a new sidewalk for the students to access not only the new school eventually, but the current forest park. And then they'll redo all of their fencing right up against that, because that sidewalk is moving towards the ECC to give them more room. Inside, in the music area, that's the area to the right as you look at the building from here. That's the one that's farthest along. Almost all of the windows are in that area. They're doing drywalling inside. They've painted the block with a primer, so it looks all nice and clean. And they've installed the metal door frames in there, so it's really starting to look like something in that area. And then it gets less and less as you go around the building counterclockwise. They're still working on some of those things. In fact, if you come in on Forest Hill from the east and you look at the east side of the building, you can see the brickwork that they're doing. Scaffolding is up there, and they're pretty high up on the far side of the building, and then starting lower down as you work your way north. And they're putting up about 6,000 brick a day at this point, which is just amazing that they can do that. There aren't that many people out there. And they do an excellent job at it.
No robots yet?
No robots, didn't
Okay.
see any.
All right. I'll move your point.
Soon they'll be sealing up the gym and working to dehumidify it and to get the moisture out of the slab in preparation for putting the gym floor in. But that could take up to 2 months or so from what they said, until they get the right level for putting that floor down. Metal studs are going in on the first floor, kind of defining the spaces. The kitchen, that's coming together there as well. The commons and the administrative offices and so forth that face the ECC are getting a little bit more enclosed now so that you can see that. In the back, if you remember, we had to create a wetland in order to get rid of some of the wetland that the building was sitting on, and that's all been cleared back there in preparation for that this summer. And our bioswale retention pond area is working very well. There was almost no water in it today after that huge downpour that we had, and it hadn't emptied out, so that was good. So overall, they're making great progress in spite of the huge rainstorms that we've had. It's exciting to see.
Was there anything special in, like, the ditch next to the road, though? I thought I saw
Mhm,
something. Is that,
right.
what was that about? Did you have to say, or-
That's, yeah, that silt fence that you see around construction sites so that the dirt doesn't move away in any direction. So they have it down there to slow down any water that might be coming off of the hill or from somewhere else before going into the neighbor's property.
There's still some runoff. It's not all captured.
It's not all
in-
going in there, and there is a sliver right along the road that will always drain that way, but it's so much less than it used to be that there won't be a problem with that.
One of the things I noticed today when I was on the second level of the building, and the large windows we have, and you actually see the trees. So we have a school called Forest Park, and you could never see the forest from any window in that school. And you see the beautiful trees that surround our building from inside that school, and it just, yeah, it is Forest Park, so it's gonna be a lovely learning space. The last area that they'll probably really finish, I think Marty said today, was the commons area, and because they don't want to be tracking through that once they get that done. So it's the space right in front of us, so it looks a little bit like, you know, they're not making progress, but that will be the last space that they're going to complete. So, very exciting. Thank you.
So it's gonna be done, how many months from now?
It'll be done mid-February.
So 12 plus, I don't know, is it 2 years? I don't know. How many months is that? Can you do that math for me?
It's less than 12 plus.
It is less than.
It is.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Okay.
probably 7.5.
No. Okay. All right. It's gonna be done? Not done, but.
They'll be done with the construction of the new building, and then we'll have to wait until summer, till we're done using the current forest park, and then that will be demolished. That'll be turned into fields, and then the parking area will go in there, and the drive will get its last coat of asphalt before school starts.
All right, thank you.
Item 8I, the treasurer's report is available in the board docs library. Item 9, school board liaison reports. We have 9A, personnel and policy. We have policy number 5460, school safety. You want to start with that one?
Sure, that'd be great. I would like to mention that Mr. Nielsen, who is the liaison, has spent some time with both policies and did send some comments to both myself and Mr. Milzer that have been incorporated into the policy, and maybe a few little changes to it, which we'll talk about in a minute. Our school safety policy, with regard to the administrative rules, was really pretty out of touch with what we needed to communicate at this time. I worked closely with Mr. Cloutier, who is our safety officer for the district, on these revisions, and they come directly from the result of the work of the safety committee. So the essence of the board policy itself pretty much stayed the same, but you will see that the rules were revised quite a bit. And before I take questions, I'll just add that there's a sheet of paper in front of you with Mr. Nielsen suggested text to the rules, and it should say buzzed instead of bust. Thank you, spell check. He would like to suggest that we include in the rules that people do get into the vestibule, but they can't get into the actual school office. In other words, people aren't forced to wait outdoors to get buzzed into our buildings. So that would be some additional language that we would add to the rules. And then at this point, Mr. Cloutier is here to help with any questions you might have about the policy.
Should that be is instead of will be? Will be means sometime in the future.
So you want to say it louder so everybody can hear that?
Under school safety, district safety plan says the district safety plan will be the compilation of individual school safety plans. And I'm suggesting it is the compilation of individual, because will be means the future, and so 2 years from now, when we read this, it means we're still working on it?
Sure. Makes sense.
This policy is important to us. All policies are, actually, to the board, but I've looked at this policy over and over and over since the day we got it. And the actual policy part, where we're taking out you're suggesting to take out that the board will, what am I looking at? Am I looking at the old policy now or the?
The one that's got all the lines through it?
Yeah.
That was the original.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
How come you delete all and as opposed to?
It just, there were so many changes to the administrative rules, that's why I just did it that way, because there were so many changes. There'd be so much that would be
Yeah, I got the new one.
confusing, I think, to follow. Not so much with the policy, but with the rules, most definitely.
Okay. So my first comment then is, on the policy part, the district safety plan will be reviewed by the school board at least every 3 years, which I suggest that we add every 3 years and shall be something like by the board at least every 3 years, and the board shall be apprised of any significant safety issues throughout the year, something like that, so that I mean, I know
In the
I know
actual
you're doing
policy
it
or in the rules?
in the policy, because I know you're doing it, you're doing that for us. But in the future, because this is the policy, if you're not here, so that any other superintendent keeps the board apprised of what's going on. If there are significant changes, or something happens, or any big expenses, that you're gonna update anything, that you keep the board apprised of what's happening, not every 3 years, but as it happens. That's a suggestion.
Right.
I don't know how the board feels about that, but.
Well, and let's just say that, we're going to receive the district safety plan. Do we know, do we have the current one? Have we seen the?
Well, we had this safety
Crisis response
plan a couple months ago. Dr.
Is that the
Miller-
same thing?
That's the plan, but we're not going to see the actual, we're not going to see, there are some things we won't see, but we saw the report. That's what you're talking about, what we saw.
Right, so this
On
is
screen.
new language under the law, that the board must see that safety plan, at least every 3 years.
So you're talking about more than what we saw on screen? Are we going to see something else?
No, you'll see that, but that plan is evolving.
So there's still a plan, and would that be in open or a closed session, or would it be more than what we saw?
Right, so likely in closed session because of the ability not to convey, you don't want to convey too much detail around what we do.
But the community will still see something like we saw
I think there are
in
definitely
April.
parts of the plan that can be public, and then other parts that would be conveyed in closed session. we're working on the district safety plan. We're enhancing it. We're definitely going to be adding more to it.
But it's really 8 separate plans, 7 separate plans, right?
Well,
We call it the district plan, but it's really separate plans.
there'll be one plan. Within it, there'll be some specifics about the high school, some specifics about the
There's some
middle school.
overlying,
Oh, yes.
It should be consistent.
okay, and we have not seen that.
We have a district plan, and it does have that. It has specifics from each school regarding evacuation, for example, and where students go. That's in our plan.
That the board has seen.
Yep. I think I projected that for you.
The whole plan.
Yeah, I think we did look at that.
I don't think so.
Closed session?
No, not closed.
Not closed, it was open. So then there may be some pieces of it you didn't see.
No, we have not seen, yeah, there are things we have not seen yet because you had not finished it.
Okay. What I can tell you is that we've had a crisis response plan, very clear plan for the district that conveys what we do in emergencies in this district. Not just threats of violence, but tornado, fire, bomb threat, et cetera. And within that plan, there's some specific information that pertains to each school. There's phone numbers for specific employees in that plan. What am I missing?
Evacuations to specific places. If you're in Hunterdale, you're not going to evacuate all the way across the city.
Yeah,
So we still need to see your finished plan.
you will, right.
Yeah.
And it has to be completed by January 2019 under the statute. It has to have all the components under the law.
Are we shooting for something sooner than that, like the beginning of the school year?
Right, absolutely. It's really nearly done.
So when it says will be reviewed by the school board, what does that review look like? The whole plan comes to us, we have a closed session, we flip through it, or what does that mean? What does it look like?
It's a review. It'd be an agenda item for
And
board
we'll have
review.
an opportunity to look through it?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's at least every 3 years, so it could be more frequent if the board would request that to be the case.
So how does the board feel about having any significant changes or issues be reported to us?
Did we get a report on safety in general, incidents that happen, or?
I mean, that's just,
Well, that's because we have a superintendent that tells us that, but,
and that's
This is-
basically their job.
well, that's if you, it is, but that's if you have a superintendent that you require to do that, so.
Well, it's their job. I mean, it's their job to report things to us as a board if they feel they're significant. And I'm sure we would hear about things outside of the board also, I mean, as a resident.
Yeah, I think that if we
I would say
were,
that you can't assume that we're going to have it reported to us.
if we were to include it, that language you're suggesting, I'd feel more comfortable with it in the rules than in policy, because words like significant issue are
What's significant?
like difficult to put in policy and have them clearly understood by everyone. But if it's the desire of the board to just include that in the rules, that definitely could be put there. But to put it in policy, that terminology is open to a lot of interpretation.
Well, what about just that there will be a safety report provided to the board and leave it general as far as what might be in that safety report? Some kind of report, and you're free to.
So, under the rules where it says district safety plan, and we have this edit, Mr. Alexandrovich, the district safety plan is a compilation of the individual school safety plans. We could add a sentence there that the district administrator will apprise the board of revisions to the safety plan, or is that what you're getting at, or will
That's what I'm getting at,
advise
but-
the board of safety concerns that would impact any changes to the plan? I'm trying to get my head around how to include that.
It's just basic that you'll apprise us of any significant safety issues or concerns, but if it's in the rules, it can just be changed, but just don't change it. I won't.
I think it would be irresponsible not to keep the board informed. And if that were the case, I think you would need to hold
It's just
me or
three-
anyone else
it's just-
accountable for that.
3 years is a long time to know what's going on, that's all.
But as a board, we can request an update at any time.
The other thing that was under training and administrative rules, and I know it's administrative rules, but all employees shall receive training on the school safety plan within the first, first 6 months of employment. That's an awful long time, because if you start in August and you're waiting 6 months as a new employee to be trained on the school safety plan, that's the whole first semester.
Correct. That is language from the statute again. It's required in the statute. We would certainly do that sooner than 6 months, absolutely.
Is that part of our new employee orientation?
I don't think it's as formal as it needs to be, and it will
That
be.
should be a part of the new employee orientation.
Right,
And
but-
especially at.
But
especially-
frankly, everyone in the beginning of the school year needs to go through this. Every employee, not just new employees, everyone needs to go through this in the first few weeks of school, which is our intent. But definitely following up with new employees and making sure they have the correct level of understanding is critical. But the 6 months was direct from statute.
And that's fine.
Okay, so I'm not entirely sure where the board as a whole stands on this, but the sentence would read, under district safety plan, the superintendent will keep the board apprised of significant safety issues, period.
Where's that, in the policy or in the?
In the rules.
Under, where?
Is there any objection to including that in the rules?
Where are you? on the-
It says district safety plan.
Right.
It would be the second sentence there.
Okay.
So the superintendent will, or district administrator will keep the board apprised of significant safety issues, period.
I'm fine with that if the
Comfortable
rest
with
of the
that?
board is. Anybody have a problem with it?
Excuse me, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's necessary, but I
don't
don't have
either.
a problem with it. I have to agree with Claude. I think if something happened in one of our schools, we would definitely hear about it within our own community, and I believe any district administrator would let us know that. But I don't have a problem with adding that. I don't think it's necessary.
I was thinking more of financial, like if you're gonna make a big change in the schools.
But I feel like we would find out about that through Mr. Cloutier's budgetary process, where he tells us what the improvements are going to be. And when we've had to make significant changes in building situations like the boiler most recently comes to mind, we were apprised of that. I just don't feel like that's necessary to add that in there.
Well, I think this is really a plan of preparation, not so much, reporting a crisis.
The nuts and bolts.
It's a business preparation, so your comment about, well, she'd tell us if something happened. No, are we prepared? This is preparation and prevention. The question is, are we prepared? And have we changed anything to be better prepared or to correct preparation? Which is kind of like, something happened and now we gotta react to it. It didn't go well, or we could have done better. So those are the kind of changes that we want to hear about. Yeah, I hope we hear it when something happens, but this is more prevention and anticipation.
And I think we need something in there that says we're gonna be notified.
I'd rather have it in there.
Yeah, don't wanna throw stones, but I'm going to. One of the prime examples is when we were working on the new football field, and the concession stand we're talking about replacing it, and one day I went by there, and before we had approved a $1 million expenditure, a bunch of it was being torn down already. And we really didn't approve it, and we weren't kept apprised of what was going on. So Judy really lets us know. We weren't always well informed.
So then if we add a word, I think we'll get there. The superintendent will keep the board apprised of significant issues pertaining to safety. So it isn't just a safety issue, like a safety problem, it's anything that pertains to safety. Like if we are spending a large sum of money on something to make our schools more safe, you would be informed of that.
Changing access to the buildings.
Yeah, that too, right. So if we began to say people don't get to get in the vestibule, you would be apprised of that.
Before the parents call.
Right.
I guess your comment about the training within the first 6 months is required by statute, right? That's why you pick 6 months? But
that's
then
why it
how
was-
much of this is state statute and how much of it is us? I mean, we got, you know, things in here about who's getting buzzed in. Does the state have a say in that too?
No.
But they have a say in the 6 months?
It's a requirement of the law that happen that way, yeah.
We can't say the first month?
You could write your policy for a shorter amount of time.
Oh, we could.
Yes, and the.
Now,
the-
is that going to be in the individual safety plans? Or is, you know, because if we just have quoting the state statute to make sure we're within the law is one thing, but now what is our practice going to be? Is that in the individual safety plans? Okay.
We have to
And
add
the
that.
training
It's
will
not
be
there now.
addressed in
We
the
have to put
individual
that.
safety plans? Okay, that's fine. Because the documents serve two different purposes.
Right.
One is the nuts and bolts and what we actually do. This is making sure we comply with state statute.
Okay, there's a whole lot of nuts and bolts that we're not seeing here. Like, for example, the district safety plan is the compilation of the individual, and we don't see all the individual plans. And school safety is such a hot button right now. We're going to approve this policy without seeing everything.
But you're not approving the safety plan.
Okay, just the policy, which is a broad statement as to what will be done. Okay.
That's okay.
And-
Yeah,
and
it's
then,
feeling better.
You know, I'll point out the language around the training, it's within the first 6 months. So we have to do it within. It doesn't mean we're going to do it 6 months out. It's within.
Do we have a date, or can you give us a time frame that we will see those school safety plans, that we can go over those?
So they're not standalone plans. They're in the safety plan.
Okay,
Yeah, they're not standalone.
okay.
But September, would you like to see the
Before
back to
school?
school?
August?
Shouldn't we see those before the school year
Well,
starts?
we have a safety committee, right? So we collaborate with that committee, so it'd give us an opportunity to make sure everybody's together to review that draft before the board does. Doesn't mean we wouldn't operate under the plan, it just means that the board wouldn't see the entire plan till that point.
September.
I can bring the safety plan in September.
Okay.
And I can make sure you see what we currently have, if you would like a copy of that.
Yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
that.
Yep, I would.
Okay.
And I guess if this says within the first 6 months, and the plans that come back to us say within a month, why would we have the discrepancy? Right? If this is supposed to be directive, or at least set the framework,
So as long as we're less than 6 months.
Yeah, I don't have a
Fine.
problem with the way it's
Yeah.
written. Like I
The
said,
wording's fine.
one is a compliance document. This is
Yeah.
more of the compliance document. And the other one is the practice. I'm more concerned about the practice.
which is why the plans would be important.
In the safety plan.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, one thing in comparing the two, where we were and what we got here, is that, apparently gang activity has just disappeared.
We really don't have any problems with gang activity in the district.
Is it because we have good rules regarding gang insignia and wearing headgear and all that?
I just don't think it exists in this
Doesn't
community.
exist? Okay. All right. We've eliminated it.
I mean, I've been around a long time, and I've not heard a complaint about gang activity in 15 years.
I can faintly remember the hat issue
Yeah.
way back.
Or the low pants or something, but it wasn't gangs. It was just low pants.
And if it comes up, that'll be a significant event that you bring to the board.
Oh, really?
Well, maybe the policy would have been prevented if they knew we were on top of it.
I don't think that had anything to do with it.
Do we have any concern about that game that people are playing?
It's not in the
As from the
Yeah.
safety standpoint?
Yeah, it's a very unsafe situation. It is concerning, but it isn't happening as part of a school activity or school function or on school grounds, for that matter. It's happening in the neighborhoods in the community, but it is concerning.
Okay.
So are there any other suggested changes or questions? Then I'm looking for a motion to approve the revised school safety policy number 3232.
This is 5460.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, 5460, pardon me.
Can I make one comment before we get to that stage? You know your page numbers are all messed up.
You know, I put a new copy in there, and it should be fine.
Okay.
No,
It still is
because there are
not.
4 pages.
So the header is,
Yeah.
when this gets in board docs, that disappears altogether. So I apologize. That is a really hard thing to do in Word, to page. Okay, so no, it will be taken care of.
Okay, so again, policy 5460, school safety revised.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Larson,
Second.
second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. And then we'll move on to policy 3232, student fees revision. Thank you, Mark.
This policy hadn't been revised in 12 years. That's why it's here and getting some attention. We went through and generally cleaned up the language where possible, brought it into line with operations, and made changes, especially in taking the district administrator out of things that the Director of Business Services takes care of, as well as just trying to make some things a little bit more clear. One thing I'd comment on is the summer school fees were removed entirely, and that's because the Department of Public Instruction doesn't allow them to be charged anymore. At one time, they described summer school fee for a class is okay if it was $20 or less. And then they changed their mind and said you really can't charge unless the student's taking something home. And we tried that. And then they came up with an enormous form where we had to show how many students were in the class, what it was we were giving them, how much it was, show them the receipts, divide it out. They all had to be getting the right amount. They had to spend the whole budget or the whole amount of fees that we brought in, or the Department of Public Instruction said they would not allow the students to be counted for revenue limit purposes, which would be a loss of $600,000. So we don't need to take that chance, so summer school fees are off entirely, and that's why they were taken off of there. Again, based on Mr. Nielsen's comments, there was a second revision added to it. The only changes with that were under the co-curricular programs, where it said that the student would show the receipt that they had paid. They used to do that. They don't do that anymore. A list is given to the coach of everyone that's paid. And we made it a little more generic because there's differences between cut sports and non-cut sports for that one. And we also made some changes to the list, the listing and the descriptions of categories of types of people that would buy tickets for the athletic passes, going to a play, and things like that.
We don't, I didn't see anything in here for the fee that we charge at the high school for being able to park your car on the. It's here. It wasn't there?
Yeah, it's
I missed
on
it.
page 3 of 6,
Oh, I didn't get
letter
that.
E.
Staying the same.
E.
So how do I have the current copy then? Is this the current copy, or?
You have the current copy. The copy that was at your place is the newest revision. It's also online, listed as V2. So that has those few word changes in it.
So if this hasn't been brought forward for 12 years, does that mean you have not changed the fees for 12 years?
No. No, the
So on
rules,
what basis
the
did
rules
you
had
change the
changed.
fees?
Not the rules had changed. The amounts had changed in 12 years for the general student fee in the administrative rule. A couple of times, but it was behind even in this version.
Can I ask why they weren't brought to the board as per policy? Student fee, well, you won't know. Because that's being removed. Student fees will be reviewed by the Board of Education on an annual basis, which I don't know that student fees should be reviewed on an annual basis, but I believe because student fees, basically it's a tax. They're a tax. And I think we should be reviewing student fees, not annually, but as they change.
But it can't change unless we approve the change.
Yes,
This is what you're saying. We are approving all changes.
yes.
That seems too restrictive if the price of the planner at the high school goes up and we need to increase it from $3 to $350.
Well, that's not in
We gotta
here.
take that to the board. It's part of
No.
the student fee.
A planner? That's not
Yeah,
in here.
For the elementaries, it is.
B2 is part of the 50, the 64, and the 78?
Yeah.
But it's not itemized in their fee.
No, I wouldn't have a problem bringing it back, like the safety policy every 3 years or something, but to bring it back every time there's a change in something, it might be too much.
How about within a percentage?
Sure.
What,
They don't tend to change much.
Right.
It's a couple dollars.
Yeah.
And sometimes activities are added and deleted, so that's changed in the rules. Like you drop an activity or you add an activity, and you wouldn't want to come to the board every
Well,
time
we
that
don't have to
happens.
because you've taken care of that. It's just each sport, $50, so you've eliminated the itemized list.
Yep.
So we basically have set 2 fees there, 50 there. There's not that many fees. And if you don't change it that often, we're not asking, I don't think there's an administrative burden to come in.
I just feel like that's micromanagement for us to have to find out if the high school planner has now gone up from $3.50 to $4. I just feel like that's not a useful
it's not about the
waste of
planner.
our, or a useful use of our time as a board. I just don't think that's something that's necessary to have to find that out.
That's not what we're asking.
Well, but that would, if the planner went up $3.50 or $4, that would be part of the student fee amounts. So then the $78 for grades 9 through 12 would go up to, what, $82.50? I just don't think that's something necessary that we have to find out on an annual basis.
I don't
There's a
believe
better
that,
use of our time.
I don't believe that Jim is saying, oh, the planner's going up $2, we just pass it through. You probably wait a couple of years till. And every other year,
I think that's what you did say, right? If it went up to $3.50, you didn't want to have to
When they
come
go
back.
up, we've increased the fee, but they don't go up every year.
So they are driven to some extent by cost.
Right.
There are also, very clear statutes about what we can charge fees for that we adhere to, Obviously, the amounts, but are specific to our school district to a certain point, right, Mr. Milzer? I mean, we're restricted on how much we can charge.
We're very
for fees.
restricted.
Yes. So we can't just keep growing them, without staying within that
Right.
law.
but to Janet's point, this really is a charge to our citizens, just like taxes are. And as a board, we should be reviewing them. It doesn't have to be a big,
Yeah,
big orchestrated event. Just add a page in the budget document and we just say, yep, that looks good. That's all we're asking for. Is information.
And really, it's saying here, if you look at it, and it says student fees will be reviewed by the Board of Education on an annual basis, okay? It's not saying that we are going to approve every increase, it's just saying they're gonna be reviewed. I don't, again, that's what we pay our administrators for, is keeping track of these things and making sure that they are reasonable for the students and the parents. For us to review them, that's fine. I mean, I'm reviewing it as I'm looking at it right now. I see nothing out of line, but for us to have to approve every single increase, I don't think that's necessary either.
You're right, it's not saying approve, it's saying review.
Yep.
So, get a printout, pass it out, done. Of course, the more detail that you give a board, the more nitpicking questions will have to be handled by the business
The
manager.
gyms, yeah.
And I've been there, done that, and I certainly understand why Jim would be reluctant to say, that's a good idea.
So if we
I
keep
think
those
that's
two
somewhat of a myth.
sentences, we
Pardon?
still have,
No.
if we keep those two sentences that are struck, we still have some oversight, and we know what's going on. It's gonna be presented in some way, shape, or form. That, whether it's, as Linda's saying, that we've had these increases, therefore we're gonna raise fees, or it's just brought up by Mr. Milsner that these were some of the impacts we had going into the next budget cycle.
We could leave those two sentences in there and review them just as we have it in the past.
What that, no, that would not be.
Pardon?
What that would mean is that would be seated on an agenda for the board. And if it's an agenda item, it will be more than a review. It will be a number of inquiries about what we're charging, why. So, if it is left in here, then it should have been, and it would be moving forward, an agenda item at a board meeting, and it would lead to that.
We would
Is,
know what we're charging and why.
Well, you
Are we
know,
afraid of
you
some
can know that
information?
any day. You can go online in Board Docs and pull up the policy, and you'd see that. Any day you want to know what student fees are, it's there. It's there. You would know that, any day. So,
I think you can also go to the website and find out what student fees are too, possibly.
but this policy is your policy. You can view it anytime you want. But when you say the board, it's a collective group of people reviewing it together, which I don't feel is necessary.
I don't think so either. I agree. Is there a way we can say, fee schedules adopted shall be consistent with the Wisconsin statutes and federal laws and regulations? The board gives the authority to set fees to the Director of Business Services.
I wouldn't be
Something like
willing to.
that.
I
What?
wouldn't- I wouldn't support that.
You wouldn't?
No.
Okay.
The board's in charge of fees. He collects them, he
True.
charges them, we set them. It's not that hard. We're not arguing about what they are, we're just sharing information once a year.
Okay, but then that comes to what happens if there's a mid-year correction or something, he has to change something. See, that's what I want to avoid, is if he says it's going to go up $5, that's something that the board doesn't really have to worry about. If we can review it annually, that's fine.
It's gonna be done once a year. Jim, you're not like, coming to the office and saying, time to, increase a fee. Doesn't work that way.
All right.
Does it? Doesn't work that way in my environment.
No? Okay.
Well, you said that there are all kinds of state restrictions as to what you can do.
Right.
And I would think that that should be sufficient for us. Why do we have to nickel and dime it ourselves and approve all these small amounts? I don't disagree with Janet that it's not really a tax. We don't get to deduct it. So, but it is like taxing because we're a government entity.
So,
But I don't think we need to review it,
but why was it stricken?
because I don't think we need to review it.
It's never been done.
Yeah.
And is that,
That's why I took
it
that
was
out
a
of there,
policy,
and
it
it's
was
not.
never done. Isn't there a problem there?
So
There
there
was
was
a
an
problem.
error, that was an error that had been made by previous boards. We're correcting that error, we're taking that out, and we're putting onus on our district administrator and business services administrator to take care of that. We don't have to micromanage every minute detail, we just don't have to, that's not our job to do that. That's why we hire these very skilled people to take care of those pieces of minutia that we don't need to deal with.
Are you suggesting it's minutia because these are small amounts? Because a fee
I'm suggesting that it's
is not
minutia
a
because
minutia. The
it is
ability
a
to-
small amount. I think Ms. Evans at the beginning of this meeting referred to the contract that we paid for CISA as 2,000 some odd dollars,
$3,200.
or whatever it was, I don't recall off the top of my head. That's just a small amount. It's a minor amount for what they do. $78 for a whole year of education and rental of books and supplies is a very small amount. And I think we're wasting a whole lot of time discussing that.
$200 per family for activities and athletics.
It's a small amount. Yes, I do believe it is a small amount.
But I don't think we should just, sweep it aside. Fees can become issues for communities. I mean, I can think of a community, a family, someone I'm aware of, where they charge fees for families to attend the concert of their own children. So we can't think that this is not an issue now, it's never going to be an issue.
Then we can
Well, I'm
change the
not saying that
policy if we need
It's never
to.
going to be an issue. I'm saying currently it is not an issue. And I think that we should move on.
If it becomes an issue in the future, we can change the
Certainly
policy and put
revisit
it
it.
back in.
I think
I'd rather keep the review in now.
It wasn't an error of the board. We
It
made
was
the
an, I
policy.
said it was an error. It was an error.
The board made error in their,
I'm just saying it was an error. That's all I'm saying. It was an error that it was not reviewed. That's it.
I think it should be back in.
Yep.
Well, we have 3-3, so it's going to fail, so. It's our job to do oversight. All it is looking at the fees.
We could make it part of that district fact sheet that we have in the budget that's included that would say this is what the fees are for next year. And that would be a review. You're looking at them, they are in front of you, but you don't have to take a meeting and an agenda item to go over them and see whether it's worth raising it $3 or not. I think that kind of thing is what's a waste of the board's time and below what the board should be doing as policymakers. But I understand not seeing them without going in makes you feel like you don't know what they are. So if it became part of that budget document, you'd know every year what they were for the next year.
Thing is, we didn't ask you to take this line out. You took it, you took the line out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if it hadn't been stricken out of this policy, you probably wouldn't say a word right now. It would have been fine to be left in here.
That's why
Yep.
we redline documents.
'Cause it's almost like we're saying, well, we didn't do it for 12 years, let's change this, so we don't have to do it in the future.
There are a lot of policies that we had originally that said the board would look at this every year. And it's ridiculous because you know how hard it is to get through these policies. We're way behind, there's a lot of them for you to go through, and you don't have time to be looking at a lot of policies every year to see if you still believe what you believed when you started the policy. So I think having the fee in a budget document like was just presented, you'll know what the fee is. You're reviewing it essentially, but you're not spending time during a meeting, and that's what it would come down to, is a discussion of why are we charging $3 more and what is it for, and could you get it cheaper somewhere else? And I've been through these with the board before. How much are pencils? How much are the pencils? What are you getting? A box of 12, what do you pay for that? I've been through this discussion for an hour with the board before. So it's not what the board should be doing, but I understand oversight is a piece of what the board does. So I think if it was listed in the budget document as being in front of you, then you don't have to look at a policy once a year. You'll be able to look at it and say, okay, that's what the fees are, I know what they are, seems fine.
Okay, then I would suggest that student fee schedule, put it somewhere in our policy that the student fee schedule shall be a part of each budget presented, annually. And then that would take care of it, because we will be approving the budget.
Yep.
Yep.
So if you can incorporate that language into the policy, I think that would suffice.
And when you say in the budget document, Jim, we're saying like prior year and the current and proposed, right? It's not just going to be.
Sure.
Okay, just to be clear.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Ms. Witkowski, did you say it again?
It's going to be the proposed budget and the prior year, not just, here's the schedule.
Yeah.
No. So a change would be obvious.
Yep. That would probably be even easier to look at then.
Yeah, it would.
So the sentence that we're drafting is the student fee schedule will be part of the annual budget presentation?
Student fees will be included in the budget document each year, showing the previous year and the next year's amounts.
Something like that is perfect.
We just need it for the motion as revised.
Are there any other comments on the rest of the policy?
Thank you, Mr. Milzer, for that suggestion. I think that's a good solution.
I think that works.
I just want to say I've never been a fan of the parking fee, but given our last discussion here, I'm just going to let that ride now.
Thank you.
So then we're looking for a motion to approve the revised board policy 3232, including the stated revision from Mr. Milzer. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
motion by Mrs. Larson, second by Mr. Lewis. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9B, board liaison reports. Do we have any board liaison reports? No liaison reports. School visits. I have one. I went to my last one at Country Dale on June 1st. Mr. Reuter was there too, to Country Dale's first grade play, How Does Your Garden Grow? All the kids dressed up as flowers and weeds and onions and farmers, and the first grade teacher said they used gardening metaphors to illustrate various elements of childhood. So it was a musical play. It was really cute. They were adorable. I guess they do this every year, the same play. So it was worthwhile to go to. Very cute. And if there are no other school visits, then I'll be looking for a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E to discuss litigation involving the school district. The board may take action in closed session if necessary and appropriate. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alexandrovich, second by Mr. Gamble. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Gamble?
Aye.
Mrs. Evans?
Aye.
Mrs. Witkowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Larson?
Aye.
And I say yes.
Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. We are in closed session at 8:27. In session at 8:43. Okay. There is no action taken in closed session, so we're moving on to item 11, future agenda items. We have the Sabre Center update on July 11th. We have the 2018-19 budget draft number 1 approval on July 11th, and the district library plan approval on July 11th. Anything else?
Is the library thing new?
So it was the information technology plan,
Different name.
ITL plan, literacy plan, and there'll be an explanation of why it's merely called a library plan now. There's a change in the statute.
I'm not going to be here for that one.
Okay. Item 12, school board meeting debriefing. Are there any comments?
Busy.
Okay. You said busy?
It was a full agenda.
It was a full
For a
agenda.
summer,
Yeah.
I was going to go to the beer garden after this.
There's a,
Telling.
Well, you shouldn't ask so many questions.
I think the topics were, there's quite a few topics here.
Okay. All right, then looking for a motion to adjourn.
Debbie, one.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Larson,
Second.
second by Mr. Lewis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:45.